Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us for another inner hour. We appreciate your spending this hour with us. If you haven't done so already, I'm going to light my little candle here, so another opportunity for you to take a moment of quiet reflection and intentional letting go of the stressors of the world from today or this week, and just as fully as you can bringing yourself present into that abiding spirit within us and among us tonight. Shabbat. For those of you observing Passover this week, Chag Sameach. I hope you're having a wonderful week. And for those of you not observing Passover, who don't even know it's Passover this week, it is. And I'm not going to be talking about that as such tonight, but a good opportunity to remember all those liberators in our lives, whether they took the form of teachers or parents or friends, who helped us get through or over or past something that was oppressing us or holding us down, and to also recognize all of the breakthroughs we may have had personally in our life into greater inner freedom, and to also recognize the still present need in the world around us for the oppressions and suppressions of the divine spirit in us, for that to someday come to an end, hopefully soon. So, a quick little reminder for those who haven't seen the calendar or don't know or don't care. I'm teaching at Unity this Sunday, so those of you in the local area are welcome to join us there, as you are every Sunday, no matter who's speaking. But I happen to be there this Sunday. So, alrighty. So tonight, our biblical theme, for the readings is going to be probably something unfamiliar to all of you, that is known by different names, but in these particular readings it's called anxiety. So I think there's sometimes in some of us who find the world these days difficult. We may have the idea that it's difficult because it's modern times, or we have more weapons of warfare, or more hatred, or more violence, or I don't know what, but it's tougher. And the reason we have all these anxieties now is because of the time we live in. And so these biblical readings go way back to at least the prophet Ezekiel. I didn't really look how old ago, but in that era or before. So not a new thing. Worrying about our life, worrying about the condition of the world, being stressed by what we find happening to us in the world is not a new thing. And not just in this culture. Obviously, this was a completely different culture in Mideastern and ancient times. And you can find that in, again, writings from cultures of, well, I think, probably all ages around the world. Certainly the Far East to China and Japan and India and so on. Anyway. So these are some things about anxiety and about what to do with it from the biblical perspective. And it's any of these things, by the way, if there's any of these topics that I ever do that you find either mentally interesting or emotionally helpful or spiritually enlightening, you can take that same theme that I talk about and do it on your own. You know, there are concordances, there are online concordances, there's all kinds of stuff available now online. Um, and you can look up any of these themes in the Bible and find lots of references and do your own study on them. And of course, although um, a little bit more difficult uh, in some of the Eastern writings to identify by topic, because not so many of them have been categorized as the Bible has by topic, but still definitely findable. So it's, you know, for those of you who like such studies, consider picking a theme of your own or one that I've used and looking into it beyond what I've shared and see what you come up with. Okay, so um, I've kind of broken this out into two sections: anxieties caused by the world or about the world, and anxieties within us that are we create, if you will. So this is from Ezekiel 12:19. Say to the people of this land, this is what the Lord God says concerning the land of Israel. They will eat their bread with anxiety and drink their water in horror, because the land has been stripped of righteousness and fulfillment by the violence of those who live in it. Does that sound like something that could have been written today about what we're experiencing? So that's clearly an externally imposed anxiety, if you will. Granted, what we hold in our consciousness is up to us, so in one sense it's all us, but in a more realistic sense, these are anxieties caused by what's going on, by the behaviors of people around us, not by us, or not by us worrying about imaginary things. These are real things caused by really people doing really bad things. So it was happening back then too. This is from 1 Chronicles 17:9. I will appoint a place for my people, and I will plant them there, so that they will come to live in the freedom of their own place. Mind you, this is before Israel existed, either as a nation or a homeland, prior to it being a nation. And I will plant them there, so that they will come to live in the freedom of their own place, and never again tremble with anxiety, because the wicked will not waste their lands anymore, as has been done previously. So this is now, if you will, a promise or a hope or an assurance, depending on how you look at it, that one day these people that were called Israel would have a safe place where they could be free of those anxieties of that kind of violence. And certainly they end up having their own homeland now. Whether this has been realized yet or not, certainly doesn't seem to be so. But it's not just, from my perspective, it's not just talking about the Jewish people and the land or nation of Israel. I think it's talking about people in general. And I think there's kind of a twofold promise here. One is that it is possible one day to live in a society, not a perfect society necessarily, but a society largely free of these tremendous violences and anxieties they cause. That sadly so many lands are still familiar with today, that's possible to do that. And I think the second promise is that it's possible for us to inwardly find a place of peace, even in the midst of these worldly troubles, where we can find a land, if you will, or a place in consciousness, because often lands were descriptions, or regions were descriptions of various states of consciousness in the Bible, that it's possible to find a state of consciousness in which we can find inner peace, even when we're troubled or have anxieties in the world around us. This is the last one of the worldly references. This is Jeremiah 30:10. Do not fear, Jacob, declares the Lord. Do not be dismayed, Israel. For behold, I will save you from far away, and your descendants from the place of their captivity. That's what Passover is all about, even though this is much later on. That's the spirit of Passover week, is this kind of deliverance or salvation. And your descendants from the land or place of their captivity. Jacob will return and be at peace and live without anxiety, and no one will make him afraid anymore. So again, I think there's an inner and an outer aspect to this, an aspect of outer safety and tranquility, and an aspect of finding an inner one. The next few readings are what I consider more interior anxieties and less worldly oriented ones. So this is Psalm, and so back in the time of David, 38:18. I am full of anxiety because of my sins. Now that's an interesting one, because clearly that's internal. And these days, in many of the spiritual circles most of us move in, you don't probably hear a lot of talk about sin. Certain more New Agey movements, certain more, I don't know what you would call them, but many spiritual movements today that are the kind a lot of us partake in. Sin is not really part of the consciousness. It's not their way of looking at it. It's not like, ooh, God set up these rules, we violate them, therefore we sin, so we're in big trouble with the big guy. That's not really the framework a lot of us carry anymore. And there's definitely good parts to that. But at the same time, there is a reality to what was trying to be gotten at by the idea of sin that we still do experience, even if we don't think in that frame of reference and don't use those terms. And what I mean by that is, when we have done or said something that we internally are very upset with ourselves for, it has violated who we are, who we want to be, the standards of morality and ethics and decent behavior and compassion that we set for ourselves, that we've done something that seriously violates that. We've intentionally hurt somebody's feelings. We've hurt somebody's feelings by acting out our anger. We've done something really selfish. Whatever the cause, whatever the actual behavior, whatever the incident was, which can take endless forms. When we've done something that we really judge ourselves as having done that was really awful, whether we called that sin or not, we hold that inside against ourselves, sometimes for a very long time. And these can even also be in the form of regrets, where we haven't necessarily done something wrong. We failed to do something that would have been better. Someone we really love dies and we never made peace with them before they died. Someone we love, dies or moves out of our lives in a way that we'll never be able to be in touch with them again. We don't know where they are anymore. And we've never been able to tell them how important they were to us or what they meant to us or how much we value what we learned from them. We've never expressed that, and so we regret not having done that. So there are many things that we can carry against ourselves for a very long time. And those things that we carry against ourselves actually create anxiety in us. They create stress in us. Part of that stress, in my experience, is one, the belief or the sense that I'll never get out from under this. I'll never be free of this. I'll never be able to forgive myself for this. I'll never forget this. I've done something irreparable, and I can't fix it, and I don't know how to live with that. A second reason that it creates that inner stress and anxiety, again, from my experience anyway, as weird as this might sound, it's almost at an unconscious or subconscious level, there's a fear of being discovered in what we've done that we have judged ourselves so harshly for, and therefore we assume others will judge us that harshly as well. And if they really knew what we did, they would judge us at least that harshly, and because of that harsh judgment, they would reject us, cut us out, behave differently toward us, excommunicate us, so to speak, from their company and society. And we don't want it to be revealed, so there's an anxiety of my awfulness will be discovered, and then what? Then nobody will love me, then it will be terrible. So there, at least psychologically, in a large number of people, there's that kind of anxiety that they're deep down not good enough, and that usually stems from something either they've been told and believed, or that they've done and judged themselves for, that they believe is irreparable or unforgivable, or however you want to phrase it. And because of that, they don't want anybody to know, because it would change their opinion of them. And it would change it so radically it might severely damage or end the relationship that we want to have with them. So the anxiety is being discovered. This goes all the way back to the Garden of Eden, when both Adam and Eve disobeyed God's commandment to not eat from this particular tree of knowledge of good and evil, and they both did anyway, and they both knew they did, so they were both upset with themselves for having done that, and assumed God would be tremendously upset with them too, if he knew, as if he didn't. But the idea was, well, I can hide this from God. And when God appears in the garden, they hide. Why do they hide? I mean, up to then they were talking and walking with God face to face every day, according to the story in Genesis. Suddenly, they hide. And when he asks them, why are they hiding? They say, because we're ashamed. So it's fear of this inner shame being discovered. It goes way back to those days. It's kind of built into human psychology now. So the ability to find ways to heal ourselves and come to peace, whether that's through help from others or however it comes, find ways to make peace with the damage we've caused, and to let go of the notion that that action cuts us off from God, cuts us off from loving relationships, and that we have to always live in fear of that it's possible to come to peace with those things. Okay, this is Proverbs 12:25. Anxiety within a person's heart weighs it down. True? Definitely is for me. Again, back to the days of David, so a long time ago. Roughly 3,000 years. So there's another sentence after this, and it's an interesting one to me. It says, so anxiety in a person's heart weighs it down, but a good word can make it glad. So have you not experienced somebody saying or doing just the right thing for you at the right time, even if they didn't necessarily know what was troubling you? They said something good or kind or compassionate to you that somehow lifted that or eased that burden in you. This is now from the New Testament, Matthew 13:22. It's a famous parable Yeshua told called the parable of the sower, which has many layers of meanings. It's a profound teaching. If you haven't studied that in a while, you might want to look at it. But he's talking about this sower of seeds, of good seeds, that goes out in the world and sows these good seeds everywhere. And what happens to the seeds? Many wonderful things can occur to those seeds, and they can produce great fruit. And then also things can happen to those seeds that prevent them from creating this wonderful good fruit, because the seeds are good. So in this section of the parable, Yeshua is saying, and he relates the seed to being the teaching, the spiritual teaching or spiritual truth, which is called the Word. And he's giving different examples of what happens when people receive this seed or receive these teachings. And then there's the one who hears the Word and takes it in, but the anxieties of the world choke it out, and it produces no fruit in him. So, have you not found that your anxieties choke the joy out of your life? Your worries about your health, or your future, or the world, or your income, or your children, you name it. Have you not found that those kind of anxieties diminish the quality of your life? Well, that's what they're talking. That's what I take this to be talking about here, is that those anxieties become so strong in us that we sometimes actually lose track of those spiritual teachings and ultimately lose track of that spiritual awareness. Not really the connection itself, because we didn't establish that. That's already there, but awareness of that connection and the sense of that connection, and being able to consciously participate and be blessed by that connection, we lose that if we get too overwhelmed by anxiety or fear. Matthew 6:25. This is Yeshua teaching again. This one's part of what's called the Sermon on the Mount. Also, another great section is Matthew's 5 through 7, chapters 5 through 7. A lot of really wonderful teachings. This portion says, "So I say to you," this is Yeshua talking to the crowd, "I say to you, do not be worried about your life. Do not be concerned with what you're going to eat or drink. Do not be concerned about your body or what kind of clothing you will put on. Is life not more than food, and your body more than clothing?" So this whole section, which is rather long, talks about the futility of worrying about our life, because what we need is actually provided. And whether it's food, clothing, shelter, friendship, understanding that while we often may not feel like we have what we want or need in our life, we really do. And again, the constant anxiety, will I have enough? Will I be enough? Will I have enough? Will I be enough? Will I have enough? Will I be enough? It drives us crazy, and just drives that spiritual consciousness, that divine energy, that loving essence. It just shuts down our awareness to that, and we get locked in these little dark places in us. And then, so one of the ways, so Yeshua is saying, don't do it, don't worry about it, don't spend your time in worry, don't get caught up in it. When you do worry, think about how God provides for the lilies of the field and all these other things God will provide for you. Remember that. So that's one avenue of dealing with it, is remember how you've always been provided for and how you've gotten through all your troubles so far. Whether they're medical troubles, relationship troubles, financial troubles, whatever you've been troubled with so far, you've gotten through all those. So your track record is really good. And God's provided what you needed to do that all along, and will continue to do so. So the last one for tonight is from a letter Peter wrote. It's called, in the New Testament, it's referred to as the first letter of Peter, chapter 5, verse 7. And this is Peter's take on what he learned from Yeshua about how to deal with these worries and anxieties. And it's just one sentence. It says, "Cast all your anxiety upon him, because he loves you." So one of the phrases common in our circles is "give it to God," or "give it up to God," or "let go and let God." Those kind of phrases. This is again over 2,000 years ago. This is Peter saying basically the same thing. Cast all your worries and anxieties upon him, because he loves and cares about you. There's a there's a tendency in us that is not a divine tendency, it's a human tendency. And the human tendency is when we get troubled, hurt, worried, stressed, there's a tendency, because we don't want to experience that stress, and we almost always find an external reason to blame for the stress. And sometimes it's genuine, there really is an external reason. Quite often we've self-created it, or at least we've allowed that external thing to damage us more than was necessary by fixating upon it and feeding it. But there's this tendency when we're in those states to withdraw. The withdrawal is based on the idea or belief that if I can withdraw and hide, then this hurt will stop. It won't get any worse because I'm now in seclusion and hiding and I can't be damaged anymore. But what that withdrawal generally does to us is cut us off from our spiritual community, from our family, from our friends. Even those who don't have a spiritual community as such, they certainly have a circle of people in their lives who care about them. It cuts us off from that, and we become isolated and withdrawn, and often non-responsive when people reach out, whether they reach out by email or phone or calling or whatever. We kind of don't respond to that and shut that down. And we remain locked in our separation and worry, and that separation makes the worry worse. We often also, in those stressed times, stop doing the spiritual practices that actually strengthen and sustain us. We don't feel up to studying. We don't feel up to meditating. We can't concentrate well enough to meditate. We don't feel worthy of praying. Whatever the reasons are, those practices that sustain and nurture and strengthen us, like meditation, prayer, study, community, all those things, we stop them. And we wonder then why we feel so estranged. It's because we've estranged ourselves. So one of the counters to that, or one of the blessings to that, which is divine in nature and impulse, is when we're troubled, if you find people to share your burdens with, then your burdens get lighter. It's kind of like, this is sort of a silly example, but the other day I was doing some things at the church with their minister over there, and we were moving a bunch of heavy things around, and there were a couple things that she wanted to move out of the church, piece of sound equipment and whatnot. And so instead of me trying to do it by myself and load them in a car, or her trying to do it by herself and load them in a car, we both took each piece and would do it together. And it was much easier, just with two of us. If we'd had 8 or 10 of us, it would have been a breeze. That was just a physical example. But when we're able to share the things that trouble us with someone who actually cares about us, whether it's a friend or a relative or a spiritual member of our spiritual community, then those things begin to lighten. They lighten because they're shared. They lighten because often we come to realize that we're not the only ones suffering from these kind of things, and we don't feel so isolated right off the bat from that reason, because we realize other people are suffering that way too. And often those people that help us can help us by really providing some insights, maybe not advice necessarily, or maybe, but definitely insights that provide us with new ways of looking at it that help us. And most of all, the fact that they care about us, that they love us enough to care that we're going through something, and because they love us that much, are willing to listen to it, are willing to let us share our pain, if you will, with them. Not take it on as theirs, which is not a healthy thing to do, but be willing to hold a space for us to bring our pain, and together keep that space open to love and peace and the grace of God, so that that can be lifted and lightened, that they can have the ability to hold that space and invite us into that space, not to leave that space themselves and come down into the depths of our despair and angst and pain, not that, which doesn't serve them or us, but hold this space where they can lift us up into that space where we can begin to feel that inner connection again, begin to allow that grace of God to move in us and allow the love of God and the love of our community and our circle, if you will, to move our hearts again and begin to lighten that heavy load and bring light where there's this shadow. So, or bring joy where there's sadness, bring hope where there isn't any. Um, Whatever words we use to talk about it, connecting like that offers us the opportunity to receive insight and advice, to improve our situation and our outlook, and offers us just that knowing we're cared for is enormous in our healing journey. Believing we're not cared for, believing that no one cares enough about us to be bothered by our pain, let alone be willing to lend a hand to help us find a way out. It's a really dark place to be in. And almost always, it's not true. There's somebody in your life that cares about you, and hopefully many people. But certainly in this spiritual community, you have people who care about you. So that idea of reaching out is important. And the other piece of that, and then we'll go into our meditation. The other piece of that, and I may not find a way to say this that comes over well, but if you are not the one suffering in this kind of anxiety that I'm talking about, or this pain that we carry in us, some of us, many of us, all of us at different times. If you're not in that space, but you know somebody in your life, in your family, in your circle of friends, in your spiritual community, if you know somebody who clearly is struggling with that, and you can see them withdrawing, and you can see that they're not connecting, you can see they're isolating themselves more and more in that dark space, and you wish they would reach out to you, and you wish you could help them, but they're not reaching out to you. And so you do nothing, because it's on them to reach out to you, because we've been taught that's invasive, that's their karma to work out, that's their thing they need to figure out. Well, you're welcome to believe that. But I'm telling you that part of our opportunity when we see somebody in that space is for us to take the initiative. Not with the sense of, ooh, look, a damaged person, and since I'm so perfect and whole, I'm going to go fix them. I'll show them how to be just like me, and then they'll be fine. Not that nonsense. And yes, there are people who do that, I know. Not that nonsense. That's absurd. And often makes matters worse, frankly. Trying to fix somebody else generally doesn't end well. But the idea of, I just wanted to check in on you. I wanted to let you know I care about you, and it seems like you're struggling with something. I don't need to know what it is. You're welcome to share it with me if you like, and we can talk about it. But I just want you to know, I'm here. I'm here, and I care about you. I'm sending you blessings. You're in my prayers. And if there's any way I can help you with what you're obviously going through something, if there's some way that I can help you with that, I'm here. Let me know. Even if it's just that, where you reach out, again, not to fix them, but reach out to let them know or to remind them somebody loves you. Somebody cares about what you're going through. And I'm one of those people. And there are probably many more. And maybe I'm not the right person to talk to, but somebody is. So, consider opening up to somebody and letting them, let them care for you in your times of hardship. So when we're in those hard places ourselves, even though it's difficult, keep doing your spiritual practices and reach out to somebody and say, you know what, I could use some help. Or you know what, I could use somebody to talk to. Or you know what, could you just come over and hang out with me for a while? I'm in a kind of a rough spot. They don't have to fix anything, and even when they come, you don't necessarily have to talk about your stuff. But you do need to connect. And if you see somebody else in those dark places that isn't reaching out, I don't mean pester them endlessly with the attitude that you're going to be their savior and fix them. Better to leave them well alone if that's your attitude. But if you really care about them and just want to offer your presence, I'll just be with you. I'll just When we lost our son, for example, sometimes people would just come over. They come over and sit with us, or come over and talk to us, or they come over and say, "Hey, you got any errands I want you to run? That I can do for you?" Or they just call up, "Hey, just want to talk for a minute." Um, in that state, we often wanted to reach out and just couldn't. We couldn't do it. The grief was too much for us. But those connections were such a blessing for us. So whether it's grief or some other anxiety or hardship, you know, be aware of what your community is going through, and if you can offer support, and even if you offer it and they reject it, well, so what? Then you weren't able to help, but you made the effort. But they had the opportunity, and you can't make people take their opportunities, but you can offer them when they don't have the hope, they don't have the energy to do it, to reach out for themselves. So, for what that's worth, uh, let's let's not just be a study community. Let's be a living spiritual community and be in each other's lives as a presence of light and love. So, okay, let's go into some meditation time. Let's just bring our attention inside. And wherever you are tonight, if you're in a place of peace, God bless you and thank God. If you're in a place of that palpable presence of love and light, then what a blessing. And if there are places within you that are still broken, still raw, still hurting, still under the dominion of those inner shadows, then just in this moment of meditation, open spiritually to the life in your community and open spiritually to the source of that life, which is this living Spirit of God, however we try to describe that. This living essence, this divine being, this true nature. Open to that grace, to that abiding presence of the reality of spirit. And let that come into your mind and into your heart and into your body. So that just by the touch of that presence, you can actually feel that you are important and you are loved, even with all your flaws, even with everything you failed at, even with all your self-doubt. You are deeply and profoundly and endlessly loved. And you can take in that love right now. And let it just begin to move in whatever is troubling your mind. Let it begin to move in whatever is afflicting your heart. And let it begin to move in whatever is weakening your body. That those afflictions can be healed and that your mind, heart, and body can be strengthened and brought into greater alignment and cooperation with that living spirit. So in this quiet for the next few minutes, in your own way, just ask for help in creating that opening. And if that opening is already present, just express your gratitude that you're in that open and expansive space where you know the truth of being loved. And we just slowly bring our attention back once more. Lord, make me an instrument of peace. Where there is hatred, let me sow love. Where there is injury, pardon. Where there is doubt, faith. Where there is despair, hope. And where there is darkness, light. And where there is sadness, joy. For it is in giving that we ourselves receive, and it is in pardoning that we ourselves are pardoned, and it is in dying that we are born. We are born. We are born to eternal life. Lord, make me an instrument of Thee. So, I hope that. I forgot to look. Is next week? I think next week is the first Friday of the month again, isn't it? I don't even know, but I think it might be. So if it is, check your calendars. If next Friday is the first Friday of the month, then it will be another interactive inner hour where I'd introduce a theme or a topic, and then we all open up our cameras and mics and have a discussion. So actually, let me look here a second. I think it is. It is. Yay! So next week's the interactive one. We'll send out again a reminder, but so that should be fun. I have no idea what I'm doing the topic on yet, but and if you have any ideas, by the way, you'd like me to do, email me or text me or call me. So thank you for joining me for tonight. I really appreciate it, and may this Passover, the rest of this Passover week, inspire us to support ourselves in those things that bring us greater freedom and fulfillment in our lives, and in letting go of so much that many of us, still carry against ourselves or against one another. And please do what you can to support others in that journey as well, sharing in their joys and sorrows, and encouraging the people you love to keep moving forward. Um, in times of great joy, it's wonderful to have the company. In times of great difficulty, it's wonderful to have the support. So stay connected to those you love, and let them stay connected to you. So love you all very much. Hope you have a blessed week, and I will call it quits for tonight. I'm going to end the recording here. Oh, by the way, maybe Ani can help me remember to do this, but we do have a new venue for recording these, so that if people miss them and want to see them, or one of them happens to really strike you and move you and you'd like to listen to it again or part of it again, we are recording them, except for the interactive. We don't do that because of the personal sharing confidentiality, but I'll send out something hopefully this week or next, and tell you about this kind of new way that you can get a recording and watch it whenever you want of any of the inner hours that we do without having me to send you anything. So, okay, love you all. Good night for now, and I hope to see some of you Sunday at Unity. Bye.